What's up, Gladiator Gang? You are back on the other side, where struggle meets redemption and legends tell their stories. Today's guest is a pioneer, the first ever UFC welterweight champion, and a coach who built an army of champions in the heart of Iowa. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my huge honor to introduce to you the Croatian sensation, Master Splinter, and the greatest motel room trashing wrestling partner there ever was, the one and only Pat MILETICH. How are you doing, Pat?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, man. I still have goosebumps. This is a huge honor, sir. Man, take me back to the very beginning. What was life like growing up in Iowa?
Well, I mean, I grew up in Bettendorf, Iowa, far east side, right on the Mississippi River, Quad Cities, one of the Quad Cities there. And, it was a sports mecca. I mean, Davenport, Iowa, Bettendorf, Iowa, Moline, Illinois, Rock Island, Illinois, and the surrounding communities. I mean, it was, technically a conveyor belt into Division I and even professional athletics. I mean, the Roger Craigs, the Jamie Williams that ended up at Nebraska, of course, then the 49ers, Michael Nunn, best pound for pound boxer in the world for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of UFC world champs, of course, and a plethora of others. I mean, for many, many decades. So me growing up, spent a lot of summers or a lot of time at least down on the family farm, Southern Iowa, and of course, living in Iowa. Grew up, unfortunately for me, with respiratory illness from ag chemicals and black mold exposure, pretty severe. And so I just couldn't breathe. So I wanted to be great at sports. I was very good at sports. I just couldn't get to the very pinnacle just because I was suffocating constantly. So it was a little difficult. Things changed after I did a lot of research to figure that out on my own. But yeah, Iowa was, I was interviewed even when I was the actual UFC champ at the time. A reporter asked me what it was like to be one of the baddest men on the planet. And I go, I'm like the 40th toughest guy in my hometown. I don't even know what you're talking about. So no, Bettendorf, Davenport, Iowa were, quite a mecca for athletics.
Absolutely. Do you remember the first time you were punched in the face?
Yeah, I was 5 years old. I got beat up by the middle school wrestling coach's son.
Oh.
I walked they had a tryout. Basically, everybody's going to, back then in Iowa, walked to a wrestling tryout, kindergarten, first grade, whatever it was. And leaving there, for some reason, this big kid and I didn't get along real well. And I certainly didn't, I didn't think I was that tough at 6 years old, but I certainly wouldn't back down considering all my brothers were gigantic and a lot older than me. But he whooped me up pretty good. And so when I found out after I got beat up, one of my friends goes, "That's the middle school wrestling coach's son, dude. You made a really grave error there by fighting him." And I go, "Well, that tells me I need to stick with wrestling." So there you go.
There you go. I
My
love
fate
that.
was sealed.
Absolutely. Right then. Who were some of your heroes growing up?
Dan Gable, certainly. I didn't idolize athletes, really, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Jack Lambert from the Pittsburgh Steelers, he was a linebacker when I was a kid, just because of his toughness. But for the most part, it was Dan Gable and a few other people. But yeah, for the most part, like when we'd play pickup football games, stuff like that, I would just say my own name. I wouldn't say somebody else's name that was running the ball. I wanted to be my own hero, I guess, at the time.
There you go. Let's talk about wrestling. When did you start actually wrestling, and how did that lay a foundation for the rest of your career?
Well, like I said, I was about 5 or 6 years old when I started. So kindergarten, first grade, right in there. And, it creates a work ethic that, doesn't go away. That's the one thing that wrestling does, whether you end up, a freestyle world champion or an Olympic champion, or just happen to spend that much time in a wrestling room, certainly in the state of Iowa, but in the community of Bettendorf, you're gonna get work ethic because there's no talking, there's no running your mouth, there's no breaks. That's just the way it is. So that set the standard, through my, I guess, formative years of playing football. Had great mentors in football and wrestling, father figures, so to speak. And, for me, I took the wrestling blueprint of work ethic and intensity and just attached that to, all the martial arts that I combined for MILETICH fighting systems. So, we know, and we knew all along that we were outworking everyone else. So that was one thing nobody was going to do.
I have heard countless stories from guys who trained at MFS and countless stories from guys who've trained everywhere else, and no one has ever said anywhere is tougher than MFS. I've never heard it, ever.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, the wrestling mentality, people are not, if you haven't grown up wrestling your whole life, you're not used to that intensity. So that's one thing. But also, I mean, I already had a lot of intensity and I was beginning, of course, coaching people. But early in my career, when I had just literally won the UFC title, I was asked to sit ringside in Chicago for a kickboxing event. And it was an amateur event. I was just a special guest, whatever. And during the fights, a kid collapsed. He got hit with the right hand, went down, got back up. The referee wiped his gloves off and then did this and said, walk toward me. And the kid took one step and collapsed onto his face and then rolled over, and his head rolled toward me. He fell near me and his pupils went poof and blew up. And so I knew he was in trouble at that moment. And the referee was standing over him counting, and I was yelling at the ref. I go, just call it. And I jumped in the ring right away just because I knew. And then volunteer firemen had jumped in because the ring doctor was downstairs stitching somebody up or something like that, tending to a broken nose, I think what it actually was. But I was trying to feel for a pulse, and the referee started doing chest compressions, and I pushed the referee away and I go, dude, don't touch him. Let me check for a pulse. And the referee freaking started to do it again, and I pushed him away again. Well, the kid didn't have a pulse by the time I had, was searching for a pulse. So the volunteer fireman and I worked on him, and he died in our hands. So he died that night. So for me, leaving that night, it was a horrible, horrible evening. Because the kid was not well trained. He was not in shape. Everything that could have gone wrong because of it, the lack of training and everything else did go wrong, unfortunately. So I kind of readdressed and reassessed everything that I was doing, and I made sure to make sure that those who did not belong in the room or in the cage left my room and never came back, because I never wanted to have to explain to, somebody's wife or their parents, why they were seriously injured.
The hell with that. All right. I've never interviewed someone who is a coach at the same time they were a fighter, let alone on the level that you did it. So I think the best way I'm going to do this is I'm going to cover your personal career a little bit, and then we'll cover MFS, if that sounds all right.
Sure.
Okay. Where did you first start training martial arts, and what were some of those early shows back in the day, like Battle of the Masters in '95, like?
Yeah, well, the first exposure I had was a Benny the Jet Urquidez seminar.
Okay.
And so I went, and that was at a university in the Quad Cities in Davenport, Iowa. Got exposure to Benny, and Benny was talking in terms of concepts and things like that. And while I was grasping the concepts, I was like, dude, I'm a beginner, teach some freaking technique. I don't want to hear philosophy. Of course, one of the world's best ever, Benny the Jet Urquidez. I want to learn how to fight, bro. I don't want to hear Tibetan monk stories and shit. So later on, of course, sorry, I'll jump. Later on, when you get older, you realize why he's talking like that in terms of concepts and understanding those things. But anyway, so started out with that. Then I did Shorei-ryu karate, and I was also down at Pena's boxing club, Davenport Boxing Club, that put out at the time probably by far the best, even over Detroit and Philadelphia and all these other boxing gyms around the country. Davenport Boxing Club, Alvino Pena was the coach, God rest his soul, was the best amateur boxing team in the country. I mean, they were loaded with hammers. So different experience for me, just coming from wrestling and all that sort of stuff. So it taught me a lot of good lessons. And then got a fourth degree black belt in Shorin karate. Did some judo at the time. And then when the UFC first came out, I said, I've got to go and find out if this is for real. I've got to go and find out if what these people are doing, because I'm seeing a little guy in a gi, play a waiting game and submit, world-class wrestlers. So I went to a Henzo Gracie seminar in Chicago, and by the time I left, I was like, no, this is legit. I'm going to get a black belt in this as well, which I eventually did. And then, I had fought a lot of K1 rules, kickboxing, won a U.S. title in that, and a bunch of other things as I worked my way. But the Battle of the Masters in Chicago, it was very raw at that time. The UFC was new, and it was no rules, no weight divisions, no time limits, all that good stuff. So I won the first 2 8-man tournaments of that. The rest, I guess I was on the path towards a UFC title eventually, right?
Absolutely. Take me back to UFC 16. How did you get the call to be in the UFC, and what was that night like?
John Peretti was friends with, at the time, my manager was Monty Cox. And so John Peretti called me and said, I made a new weight division, 170, and you're in the 4-man tourney, so start getting ready. Ironically, with that, I was 6 or 7 weeks out. No, probably 8 weeks out or 9, actually. I had 2 heavyweights land on my leg. I was up against the wall. We were doing wall drills, takedowns on the wall. And one of my legs was totally straight while I was defending the takedown, and 2 heavyweights fell on it and trashed it pretty bad. And so I couldn't run. I was having trouble running. About 4 weeks into my rehab, so I'm trying to get ready for the first UFC I'm ever in, and I can't run for my conditioning. So I'm having all kinds of issues.
That's
and
rough.
things. Ended up going to an orthopedic surgeon. He goes, no big deal. It's just some scar tissue in there. You'll heal up. And then I went to a chiro the week after at Palmer College of Chiropractic there in Davenport. And he felt the back of my knee and he goes, does this hurt? And I go, yeah. And he goes, your tibia is partway out of socket. And so I'd been training for 4 weeks on a completely, a knee that just wasn't right. So he put it back in, and I was able to start running, things like that. The ligaments were stretched out pretty badly. But nonetheless, yeah. So went to New Orleans and fought Townsend Saunders first, which I was more petrified of him than I think he was of me. Just because I had dealt with, Olympic level wrestlers and All-American wrestlers. And I knew what it was like dealing with guys of that pedigree in terms of explosiveness and strength and things like that. So going into it, I was very cautious. And turns out, the only time he got takedowns on me was when I lifted my leg off the ground to knee him or throw a kick. So, but nonetheless, won that close decision, and then fought Chris Brennan in the championship. He was an alternate because Mikey Burnett was too tired and beat up from his fight with Eugenio Taddeo. So, became the 4-man tournament winner and technically, I guess, the 170-pound champion at that time. So
right. At that time, how many other tournament champions were there? I know Mark Coleman had been a tournament champion.
Well, there were, they had the 8-man tourneys in the heavyweight division previously and things like that. So I believe, I'm trying to think. I watched UFC. Boy, well, the first UFC I went to was UFC 9, I think, Cobo Arena in Detroit, when I cornered Omri Batesh against Don Fry, which was a serious physical mismatch.
I remember that fight.
Still to this day, probably the most brutal fight that I've ever seen in person. But Omri, just didn't want to quit. But I think then we went to Denver. We watched the Ultimate in Denver. It got moved out of Denver, got kicked out of Denver. I think they moved it over to Aurora, Colorado, or something like that.
We had to
literally, we drove to downtown Denver, found out it was canceled, drove out to Aurora, and they were only allowing we found out it was canceled before everybody else, and we went straight to Aurora to a high school gymnasium where they moved it to. So they had a sold out Denver arena, and then they had to shrink it down to a high school gym. And so we were, there literally almost first and got in. We got lucky, but so I had seen a few before I was in anyway.
Okay. UFC Brazil, or 17.5, I believe is what it's referred to. It's called was returned for you, and you get put in against Mikey Burnett. How did you view him as an opponent going in, and how did that fight play out for you?
I saw him as a very well-rounded athlete. He was, of course, a Greco national champ wrestler, very strong, and good hands.
Lions Den too, right?
What's that?
Was he Lions Den?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I went in with the mindset that I have to get him off his feet. I have to take him down. I just didn't have the full-blown confidence. I'd knocked people out, of course, in kickboxing and stuff like that. I just really, for some reason, didn't feel the confidence in my boxing skills at that time quite yet. And so I was focused on getting takedowns, things like that. Turns out it was the most boring fight in the history of the UFC. He was exceptionally strong. He was an exceptionally strong guy. I mean, at the time, 170-pound fighter, I think he was benching like 425 or something.
Yeah. He had basketballs on his shoulders.
He was a very strong guy. So, but nonetheless, got the decision, and then kind of went on from there. So,
okay. In what ways did your life change quickly after winning the belt?
Well, a lot more people from around the country and around the world wanted to train at my gym. So had a lot of people traveling to train with me, and by then we had built a pretty solid team already. And a lot of people would come to train for, a week, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, depending on what they were doing. Fighters, of course, to get ready for their fights. And most of them would leave in a couple days. We just did things a little bit differently. It wasn't about the punishment. It was about the endurance and about the work ethic, things like that they really couldn't deal with. So,
right.
So they mentally just would break and pick up their bag and walk out of the room. And Hughes was notorious for yelling at them before they walked out and said,
I believe that.
If you leave, you're never coming back. So some guys put their bag down and stayed, and they ended up being very good. But the vast majority, of course, left. So. Right.
Okay. Fast forward to UFC 26. You've already defended your belt, and you take on a young, hungry John Alessio. Did that fight play out how you thought it would? And walk me through the armbar finish.
Yeah, I mean it. Yeah, and John was pretty confident in himself. Was a good athlete, very good fighter. Just hadn't probably had the experience that I had in terms of wrestling and hanging around with world champion boxers and the balance of the overall training that I had. But more than anything, it was when I got mounted on him. You have to feel at times. There's certain people I never felt compassion for, and deliberately inflicted a little more damage. But I had no reason to, beat John into the canvas or anything. So I just spun on that arm bar where you stay planted on your knees and you trap their shoulders and their head, and then just pull on the arm and arch your hips in. And so it's a it's a lot easier than people think to pull off. You can hit it. It's a quick hitter.
Mhm.
And so that's he gave me that, and then so that's what I took.
Okay. Um, I could have asked you many questions about every single fight that you had. I decided to pick three or four to highlight. And the last one, I want to talk about your win over Shoney Carter. A lot of fans nowadays probably maybe haven't heard that name. Shoney Carter back then was one of the best fighters on the planet, and someone that I liked a lot. You were coming off the loss to Carlos. What was your
Yeah.
mindset going into that, and how satisfying was it to get back in the win column in that fashion?
Well, the UFC told me, because I had a rematch clause in my contract, so all I had to do was win that fight, and I had an automatic rematch for the title with Carlos.
Okay.
So for me, that weight cut, I'm trying to think of which exact weight cut that was, because I've cut weight total for I cut weight
Mhm.
total for like 30 years of my life. But
Wow.
I had a really, really bad time trying to make weight.
Okay.
And I didn't sleep at all the night before. Oh, I remember. I had a brand new house, a brand new baby, and a brand new Gold's Gym. All of them were hitting at the exact same time.
That'll do it.
And I had to win that fight to have enough money to put as a down payment on my house that was being built at the time and that was being finished at the time, right?
Yeah.
So I had a lot of pressure, and um, the weight cut was brutal. And then I laid awake all night. Just your mind will play tricks on you when you're that dehydrated.
Mhm.
And I thought, I know I can beat this guy. I've already fought him once. That's not a problem. But what happens if I get cut?
Mhm.
A kick or anything, a spinning, whatever he throws,
Mhm.
and I get cut, and I don't get enough money to put a down payment on the house I'm building. I've got a brand new baby. I've got, a brand new gym, all these. So it was a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
So when I made weight, I went back up, and that was same day weigh in.
Yeah.
So I made weight in the morning, then went up to my room to start sipping water and electrolytes, and everything cramped. I was curled up in the fetal position in my bed. So I called Monty on the hotel phone, called his room, and I said, "You got to get somebody to take me to." I like I'm thinking I'm dying. So anyway, that was when I had to revive myself that day, and so by fight time that night, I was still seeing double,
Wow.
and so my goal was I hit him with a throw. He was a Greco national champ as well.
Mhm.
But I hit him with a throw, put him on his back, got mounted, and I wanted him to wear himself out to kind of equalize our situations, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And then second round, I came out and I just said I'd already set up kind of how the head kick was going to finish him, and so that's
Mhm.
what I used to get him out of there.
It was an awesome kick, man. One of my favorites ever.
Yeah, thanks.
Um, what was your hardest fight?
Hardest fight was actually Jason Nicholson from Oklahoma. He was a Lions Den guy, but he was 220. What did they say, 220 or 218 at fight
Woo.
at weigh-in time? He weighed in at 218, and the promoter lifted up. He put his hands behind himself and did this with his hands, and the promoter
Oh
lifted up on his
wow.
hands so that he made the
Wow.
185 or 180 limit, whatever it was back then. And that was TJ Thompson, Super Brawl.
Okay.
TJ cheated for him, so but anyway, he trained with the Lions Den, and he was the number one ranked cruiserweight boxer in the world at the time, I think. But also had some wrestling experience. And
Mhm.
I took him down like 14 times during the fight because I knew I didn't want to get hit by him because he actually had world-class punching skills
Mhm.
and a lot of power. Um, so I hadn't slept at all for 2 nights before that fight because Monty Cox and I were in the same hotel room, and Monty snored so horribly that I never slept.
Oh my.
I'm telling you, dude, it was brutal. I had to put on I put on headphones with music with like AC/DC or something stupid, and took my comforter and my pillows from my bed and went in the bathroom in the tub and covered my head, and I could still hear him. So I lost my mind. So 2 days of no sleep. So that fight was compounded by Monty's snoring and no sleep.
Bad money. Oh, that's wild. Take me back to 1997. Before you were ever in the UFC, you started a gym in Bettendorf, Iowa, known as MILETICH Fighting System. I could ask questions all day long about it, so I thought maybe instead of doing that, I would just kind of let you walk the viewers through the journey of MFS, maybe just the history.
Yeah, sure. I split off from a guy named Nick Tarpon. Back then, I was running one of his gyms for him, and he had gotten into some hot water a little bit with, students. We'll just say that, caused some problems for himself, and I was kind of considered his right-hand man at the time. And at the time, it was karate kickboxing gym.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried negotiating with him a little bit about buying that gym or taking it over and putting my name on it. And he basically said, no, you're stuck. You're not leaving. You're not opening your own place. You're not. So I just said, okay. I decided I'm just going to go. I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So I left, and I rented a racquetball court. I put really crummy old wrestling mats on the walls on the floor and turned it into a battle box. And that was my new training facility. And I had like 250 members in a racquetball court. I was teaching kids classes, adult classes, women's kickboxing, women's cardio kickboxing, grappling classes, adult kickboxing, and then the MMA guys were at the end of the night. So I did that every day, put out lead boxes everywhere, sign up for a free week of lessons, all that stuff. I would call them every Friday, every single person that put a slip in there. You want a free week, and was doing all the marketing, all this, and cleaning the mats and all that sort of stuff. I did pretty much everything back then, and build up, a good business for, a racquetball court, I guess. And it kind of went from there. And then ended up in a Gold's Gym. I was part owner of a Gold's Gym, and that went really well for me. My membership exploded, but I started noticing and started having conversations with Monty Cox, who was also one of the owners, that the guy that was handling the accounting and his accountant, that some funny business might have been going on. So turned out, I think there was, I don't know how much in total, it was several $100,000 that it just didn't make sense mathematically. The guy that got punched in the head was doing math, right? Wow. But anyway, we confronted them at a board meeting, and they lost their shit. And I had to assist in getting the computers to have an outside independent audit done, and found out that things were not being done right. So nonetheless, I left there and opened my own place, bought a building with another gentleman, and moved it there. And that was the final place, where I retired from eventually, as I got so busy with law enforcement, military training, broadcasting, and a lot of the other stuff that I was doing. And I wanted to see my kids. I had 2 young daughters.
Right.
And so that was when I decided to sign off. I can't remember exactly. I've never kept track of dates. It's not something I do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't keep track of dates of when people, I know birthdays of my daughters, for instance. But I don't keep track of dates of like when I retired, or
Right.
Deaths in the family or friends, or, any of that stuff. But I will say that I was searching on what I had to push off my plate at the time, and I knew it was coaching, because, again, I'm not seeing my kids ever.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, one of my broadcasting jobs was ESPN, and Brian Stan and I co-hosted a show there. And so when we got done with the show, we got in the car service together to go to the airport. And I got on the phone with my daughters and told them that I would be home after they were in bed, and I would see them in the morning. My favorite thing was to make them breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
So got off the phone. I had him on speaker, and Brian Stan looks at me and he goes, I've got 2 daughters too. He goes, that's awesome. And then he looks at me, and it was like God sending a message, because I'd struggled for 3-4 years with making this decision. So he looked at me and he goes, Pat, I've killed a lot of people. And in the middle of combat, I always wondered, this is him talking, of course.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of combat, I always wondered what life was all about. And he said, I finally came to the conclusion that the greatest thing a father can do is raise his kids the right way and get them off on the right foot before we're gone.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment, literally that moment, I looked out the window of the car because it was such a heavy deal for me. But at that moment is when I retired from coaching. I knew that was it. That was the message that I needed to hear. So I'll always be thankful to Brian Stan for not only being a great human being, but that message that he gave me. So
I wish Brian Stan would run for president.
He's too quality of a human being to be president, brother.
There you go. Yeah.
We got to be honest.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, you're right. Pat, if you would, I'd like for you to brag on yourself a little bit and your coaching acumen. Mention a few of the fighters out there that you trained, champions, notable names that the viewers can relate to.
Well, I won't mention any names because,
Okay.
The last time somebody counted before I retired was 95
Okay.
televised athletes. So 95 televised athletes, and I think 12 world champs, and then 2 team world titles in the IFL. And, so yeah, we had our fun. We had our run. I burnt the candle at both ends. I ran hard, and we made an impact, I think, on the sport. So.
Yeah, in my opinion, I've told everyone from MFS that I've interviewed this, and I'll tell anybody else. I don't care what gym they're from. I believe MFS to this day is still the greatest gym in the short but amazing history of MMA. So
I appreciate that.
Great job, Pat. Definitely. What's something that coaching gave you that you couldn't get from fighting?
Well, perspective, certainly, and how you would think it would teach you to communicate. In that world, I learned to read personalities.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to read people's backgrounds a little bit, from a childhood aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to communicate, whether they were audible, visual, what type of learning patterns were best for them. And I had to learn how to communicate boxing angles to a wrestler who only understood angles from a wrestling standpoint, and angles to a kickboxer or a boxer when it came to wrestling, and be able to teach in their language that they understood for them to absorb the other arts. You know what I mean? So
you were teaching yourself at the same time.
Well, we're always teaching ourselves, right? Whenever you're coaching, you're just making sure that you're perfecting and sharpening your own skills. You have to, because you don't want to teach people incorrectly. If you have any moral fiber, I guess, or care about the quality of what you're doing,
right,
or stamping it. Look, my team name. If I'm stamping my name on somebody, well, I'm not sending them out to lose or to collect money. Just to, that's not how it works. I was programmed to win. From an early age, and that's what we did.
Gotcha. Okay. How surprised were you when it was announced that you were being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame? I guess I asked that because of how many years passed between the end of your career and when the induction happened.
I was very surprised because Dana White and I had certainly our ups and downs over the years. It all started with really it was kind of the fire was lit between Dana and I by Tito Ortiz getting beat up by Lee Murray in London, and then Tito going back and lying and saying it was me and my whole team and the English guys that I trained that all jumped him and his team, and that's not what happened. So
right.
Everybody knows the truth now that Lee Murray just knocked him out, and that
right.
Tito took his jacket off, and they squared up fairly, and that was a fair fight. And but of course, Dana called me up screaming and yelling, and all kinds of crazy stuff, and telling me that he was going to get the footage, the camera footage from the alley. And I said, good, make a copy and send one to me. So, then the truth. And of course, I never got a copy. There probably was never any footage, whatever. He was just trying to find out if I'd, change my story, whatever. But, there were other things that happened along the way that were, not necessarily in my control. How I responded to Dana was in my control. And I think, today, if those things would have happened, the way I look at the world and things, I would have responded differently to him.
Sure.
Instead of meeting force with force, in an argument, it would have been, I got to be honest with you, Dana. I actually, because at the time with Tito, I got along with Tito great at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have anything against him, nothing, so why would I beat up Tito? I have no reason to beat up Tito. There's absolutely no reason for that.
Mm-hmm. And
then some of the other stuff that took place, I could have approached it differently instead of being, a dick back to him, so to speak. Dana's very passionate about protecting his product and the work he's put in.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that. He will defend it very aggressively, and nothing will stand in his way. He will get rid of anyone who does get in his way. That's just the way he thinks. And look, hats off to him. He's a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a great childhood, and neither did he. So when he feels fear, I had to be able to understand that Tito Ortiz getting knocked out in an alley fight by Lee Murray, who's a weight division below him.
Mm-hmm.
That's his golden boy. That's the goose that laid the golden egg for the UFC at the time. Crushes the brand name of Tito Ortiz in a little way, damages it at least. So it jeopardizes what he's doing. There's a lot of angles that I see that I didn't see back then. So, so it's just the way I responded was probably incorrect in defending myself. I could have done it a lot more tactfully. We'll just say that. And things probably would have been a lot different between us. So it certainly wouldn't have ended up costing me millions of dollars. Right.
Yeah. Maybe Tito had some injuries going into that fight with Murray.
The only problem he had shitty head movement and couldn't get out of the way.
Yeah, I can't imagine. No offense, Tito. I can't imagine how hard it would be to move that head. He's got the biggest head in the world.
Right.
No offense, Tito. Love you, man. Like myself, you were someone who had to find out, I guess you could say the hard way, that there are some fights that are harder to win than others. Sometimes it takes more than training and hard punches. Share with the viewers what your relationship with alcohol has been like in your life.
I could just say that for me, having been through alcoholism and come out the other side, now, more than 2 years sober, that if you need help, go get it.
Mm-hmm.
Go get it. No matter what it takes, go get the help. For me, analyzing and going through like I said, I didn't have a great childhood.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of physical abuse, a lot of stuff that went on. I was sick at the same time with the respiratory illness, all the other stuff. So I lived a childhood in fear. And so by the time I figured out how to heal myself, when allopathic doctors weren't getting it done, it gave me a human superpower physically where I would never get tired. Mm-hmm. Because I had to work 3 times harder than everybody else to keep up in wrestling and football. So with that work ethic, and now I go from breathing through a straw full of mucus my whole life to a crystal clear PVC tube. All of a sudden, I can do anything physically that I want to do. I can run as fast as I want for as long as I want. I'm throwing a lot of weight around, and people doubt these sort of things.
I mean,
I got to where I was dunking basketballs at 5'10", things like that. I spent an entire summer after workouts focused on dunking a basketball. So I was so pissed off I couldn't. I'm like, if Spud Webb can dunk a basketball, I can dunk a
Right.
basketball. So I worked at it. Yeah. So anyway, nonetheless, so the more powerful I got and more invincible I became physically, the more the injured child emotionally, mentally, the psychological, the spiritual got suppressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the more that monster grows physically, the more the little kid gets suppressed. And you forget about it. And you go through and you're, running through the world and building monsters and doing all these things, and you never address it.
Mm-hmm.
And so through things that happened in my life, um, you take on, you never get rid of that victim mentality, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
always you're always thinking you're the victim because you were beat as a kid and all these other things. And psychologically, it's tough to get out of that rut.
Mm-hmm.
So, but addressing subconsciously, becoming a world champion in fighting and healing myself of respiratory illness, that was me addressing the physical abuse that I could never be abused by anybody again.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I didn't address the other components of that injured child. So through life, I started to self-medicate. And, when I saw, through all my research, and people may go, whatever, I've researched soil to human health for 39 years. That's all I've done. When I'm in a hotel room, I'm researching. I've got books from the 1800s all the way forward. That's the sort of thing that I would do. I saw COVID coming a decade before it got here. I wrote specifically books about it and journals about what I was seeing. And so as it got closer, I started to drink more because in 2018, I was already saying on my podcast, spring of 2020 is when this all hits, right? And people weren't listening to me, which made me have a little more fear, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it hit, so the psychological tactics, all the other stuff that they use during all of it, whether people agree or disagree, it doesn't matter to me because I know what I saw and I know my research proves out. But the point is I was self-medicating because of fear. That's all I was doing.
Yep.
And you can't do that. You can't do it. So nonetheless, it took 3 DUIs and for me to finally beg God for help and just hand all the big stuff over and go, I can only control this right here, what's inside here. And I'll just do the best I can to help people. That's all I'm going to do, and focus on sobriety and helping people walk out of that nightmare as well, if I can, and help people with their health as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What steps do you take daily to stay focused and centered?
I always pray in the morning. I don't pray for, $1 million. I don't pray for anything. I pray for the ability to communicate clearly, the ability to show compassion and meet people where they are, because, most people didn't figure out their own illness and put together a protocol and solve their lifelong illness
Mm-hmm.
through research that started my journey, right? So I have to meet people where they are, and I have to understand that everybody, when I look, I had to spend 30 days in jail because of my last DUI. And thank God nobody was ever hurt through any of those.
Mm-hmm.
But what I observed through my experience, and I had been at that point almost 2 years sober already by the time, sentencing came. I observed everyone in that jail was an injured child that never healed, every single one, right? And so when I look at people in public and I have conversations with people, I can understand where they're coming from, why they act the way they do, all those sort of things, and just try to show a little more compassion. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
It definitely did. And I'm just a redneck from Arkansas, and you don't know me. But congratulations, man. Don't think too much of it, but that amount of sobriety is not easy to achieve. Not for someone on their first try, not for someone on their 10th try. So good for
And
you, man.
how long have you been sober?
Almost 20 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's impressive. That's impressive. And
That the first year and a half was really, really difficult for me. It was my issue wasn't alcohol; it was something else. But it was almost an hourly thing that I thought about, and because my drug of choice had so many accessories, I guess you could say it took a good 5 or 6 years before I looked at a drinking straw as something that went here and not here, a light bulb as something that puts off light, not that you smoke out of. So
right, yeah,
yeah,
no, I get it.
yeah,
Yeah,
your amount of time is I'm very proud of you, sir.
thank you. No, and
I,
the desire to drink left me. Um,
mhm.
when I that was a very sincere prayer that I had that night. It was before I got my DUI, my last DUI, but I begged for help, and it was so I recognized when I had my truck parked and I was sleeping basically in a parking lot. Um, when he woke me up, I knew that not long after that was God saying, "You might not like the answer and me saving
Yeah,
you the way I'm doing it, but this is the way it's happening." Right.
yeah,
And so that we be careful what you wish for, be careful what you pray for, because you can't choose the way that it gets served up. Right.
hmm
So
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. You mentioned soil earlier. If you would tell the viewers what you have got going on in life these days.
Yeah, so I partnered up with Dr. Will Spencer, who's a guy that spent, and he had the same problems as a child. He grew up on a farm.
Hmm.
Chemicals had injured him and his respiratory system and things like that. But he had literally the same journey about the same time, a couple years apart, because I'm a little older than he is.
Hmm.
But he healed himself as well. And it once you heal yourself and it changes your life, you're obligated at that point to not only do more research, but to educate people about what can change their lives, right? We're
Yeah.
kind of obligated at that point. So he got into agriculture without chemical free agriculture and homeopathic medicine. And so his many years of training and applying what he knew and learning for 40 years and what I was doing in the human health and performance towards the soil and recognizing that the environment is what's causing human illness. Like we were all created perfectly. Trust me.
Hmm.
Um, the the environment always dictates genetic expression and immune function. Always. So um, we met up, and I was already into the agriculture world. Trying to find my way. A lot of meetings at university ag departments and PhD ag guys, professors looking at me going, like, what are you even talking about? They didn't even understand what I was talking about because they come from
Right.
the chemical side of agriculture, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, man, if you put the full 64 minerals into the soil and put biology, the right collections of biology, like you don't need pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides. You don't weeds won't even grow because they don't need to be there because weeds are only there to put the certain elements that particular weed pulls out of the ground or out of the atmosphere back into the ground when it dies and decomposes. That's how nature heals the soil, right? Things like that. So my meeting with him, we did a 6-week road trip, speaking to agriculture experts and indigenous leaders across the country, and we got to know each other really well. And boom, here we are with Soil Saviors, and that's what we do. We teach people how to grow
Okay.
Jurassic-sized gardens, orchards, hunting food plots, ranchers, regenerative ag people. We teach them how to
Okay.
grow food, a lot of it, and even remediate all toxins in the soil. Whether it's forever chemicals or heavy metals, or even radiation contamination and high acid levels,
Wow.
down to non-detect levels in a few months. So,
Wow. That's amazing.
yeah.
Um, we all know your past. Now we know what you're doing nowadays. What does the future hold for you?
I'm just continuing to Do research. We've got a lot of tests and studies going on. We've got a lot of data already for, from human to soil health and honeybees, livestock. We do a lot of research. When you remineralize, and that's the thing is, best way to explain it is that the world is just one organism. We're just part of that organism. We all need the same number of minerals in the right form. They have to have been digested by microbes in the soil to be converted into bioavailable, what's called a colloid mineral. That creates proper genetic expression and, of course, the proper vitamins in the right form, all that, not the synthetic vitamins and the rock dust that they sell people. But nonetheless, yeah, I'm just continuing. I just did a speech in North Carolina, a couple of them, with Dr. Will Spencer, my business partner. And we sold out a product in a couple days. It was a 3-day event. Nice. We sold out halfway through the second day. And I'm being asked to speak on bigger and bigger events in terms of human performance, health, environmental health, a lot of that. So people start to truly understand the levity of the situation that this country's in right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I recently switched jobs to a place. It's a grocery store, but it's a co-op, locally owned, organic only. Very, very, very in line with what you're talking about. And coming from a barbecue background, I don't know anything about this stuff. So a lot of what you just said, I'm hearing for just the second time in my life. So I find it very interesting. I'm going to take some of what you said to work tomorrow.
Beautiful. Yeah. And, the thing is people have to understand this, is that it's not the food you eat. It's what the food you eat ate. Mm-hmm. So what were your bananas grown with? Was it synthetic chemicals or was it real minerals and microbes? Mm-hmm. The berries, the vegetables. What was the beef eating? Was it eating grain that it shouldn't be eaten to begin with? Mm-hmm. And was that grain grown with synthetic chemicals?
Right.
It goes through the food chain straight into us. And so mm-hmm. if we put the full mineralization in the soil, again, soil infections, for instance, bacterial and fungal infections, are symptoms. You don't spray antibiotics, which ag corporations mm-hmm. sell by the billions of gallons.
Yeah.
They spray antibiotics to kill the herbs, the weeds, and the fungal and bacterial infections. So you're killing the messenger that's telling you that you're screwing up. The bugs are coming in and eating your food because your food is sick, because your food is not fully mineralized and does not have proper balance of probiotic microbial life in the soil and the plants. Therefore, the plants are saying, come eat me. I'm sick. Come digest me and recycle me back into the ground where I belong. And again, they allopathically treat the soil with, they grow with synthetic NPK fertilizers. They use insecticides, which are technically human sides. And then they use antibiotics, the herbicides and the fungicides and things like that, to kill all the life in the soil. Just as if you get an infection and you go to the hospital and they write you a prescription for what? An antibiotic to kill the life that's in you. So they've made you afraid of the 90% of the cells you're made of, because we are 90% other than human. Mm-hmm. If you understand how to mineralize the body, again, with the right form of minerals and the right balance of microbes, probiotics, you don't have issues. You just don't have issues. So,
okay.
And so that's an educational piece that, was kind of done away with in universities when big chemical corporations started funding things, I guess.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. Back to fighting for a second. I like to ask everyone this question because the answers are all over the place. Give me your top 4 Mount Rushmore style greatest fighters ever. Any combat sport, any era. Top 4 ever.
There's a lot of names for MMA. Certainly, Fedor. Matt Hughes is certainly on that. George St. Pierre easily could be on that. The list goes on and on. I mean, Pereira,
Yeah.
out of nowhere, from kickboxing coming in and
Mhm.
destroying people, certainly has laid his stake to be there. But I mean, I go back to 80s boxing, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin
Yeah.
Hagler,
Thomas
Duran,
Hearns.
John the Beast Mugabe, Iran
Yeah.
Barkley. That was Killer's Row. Like
Mhm.
that was Killer's Row of combat sports. So
Mhm.
tough to
Okay.
tough to argue with those guys, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with all those.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite person to watch fight nowadays?
You know what? It's not. I don't. I don't necessarily watch a ton of fighting.
Okay.
I mean, I do, but I don't. It's got to be something pretty special for me to
Mhm.
turn on the TV for. I
Maybe
don't
Pereira?
like. Yeah, oh yeah, I'll watch Pereira 100%.
Okay. There we go.
But like, we don't even watch TV. We don't
Mhm.
even. I haven't watched TV for, I don't know, 7 years, really, for the most part.
Nice.
Um, I'm focused on research and
Mhm.
doing things like that, and you know, uh, traveling to give speeches, whatever. But so yeah, I kind of disengaged from a lot of the chaos of the world that I spent, for 25, 30 years of nonstop on airplanes and go, to where
Mhm.
I've just taken a step back in a lot of ways. But yeah, a special event like Pereira fighting, yeah, I'll tune in.
There we go.
Yeah.
I like to ask everyone what advice they give an 18-year-old version of themselves now. But I'm going to do something different than I've ever done before. I want to ask what advice you would give a 6-year-old Pat Miletich.
That this is a process, that this is intended to turn you into a better human, a person who can withstand a lot of punishment, a person who can understand other people's pain. And also, I think it was ultimately all of that was intended to allow me to look at sick children and know that we can change that really fast. Because every time you see a sick child, it can be changed really fast. Trust me, it can. And for all those people out there that are struggling with their health, all the different forms, manifestations of inflammation that they have, things like that, understand that that is the environment that's causing that. It's the water, it's the food, the medications, all those different things are combining. Synthetic chemicals, heavy metals, and other contaminants from the environment do not belong in your cells. That can all be removed through natural process and replaced with really high grade substances that are meant to repair damaged DNA, create proper genetic expression, and all those beautiful things that happen, and give you a whole different outlook on life.
Hmm.
So that's what I say to people is, um, if you had your health back, we'll say in 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, and you could live a really normal life and you could jog again, you could play with the grandkids again, you could go upstairs again, or you could run a marathon again, right? Or for the first time, because everything, like, you just become that much more,
Hmm.
you have that much more vitality when you do things the right way. How would that change your life? What could you then do with your life? And most people don't believe that it's possible because they've never been told it is, right?
Hmm.
It's like a guy that came from New York, one of my affiliate schools many years ago before I retired, came to my gym. All my affiliate school owners had to come and train with us. And he comes to me through the 1 week training course that they had to go through. And he came to me and he goes, dude, there is no way I can tell my students to do this level of, like, the women that train there cannot do this type of endurance workout. And I said, David, how do you know they can't? Why would you even believe that they can't? And who are you to say that they can't? Why don't you tell them that they can and watch them do it? And you'll change their lives. And so he called me up a week and a half, 2 weeks after he got back to his gym in New York, and he goes, dude, I never thought that. He goes, I've got new members pouring into the gym. They love the classes, and he goes, and I go, exactly, because you told them to do it and they didn't even know they could.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying to people who are sick. It's really not that hard to correct it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody says eat better, do this, do that, Listen, put the proper shit in your body and you will respond. It's got to be high grade stuff. It's got to be high grade supplements, things like that. But nonetheless, it happens usually at a very fast rate. So,
right. Awesome. Pat, I am to the last section of the interview. This is the section I told you about that's probably going to be a little bit goofy. I'm going to ask you questions I guarantee you've never been asked in an interview before. And the goal here is to make you more relatable to the regular guy like me, my neighbor, my coworker, etc.
okay.
All right. Who wins in a fight, both in their prime, Ali or Tyson? Everybody has an opinion.
I would have to go with Ali.
Me too. Okay. Nice. I think he frustrates Tyson. Yeah. Takes it round 6, 7.
Rope-a-dope.
Yep. There you go. Yeah. All right. What's more important, hard work or natural talent?
Hard work by far.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. What is the best Rocky movie?
One. You got to go with one. Come on.
There we go. Right. Okay. What is your favorite animal at the zoo?
My favorite animal at the zoo. I've always been I like prey animals. I like carnivores. I like birds of prey, things like that. They've got it a little tougher. They can't just walk around and eat grass.
Right, right. I like that one. Again, both in their prime. Who wins, GSP or Anderson Silva?
That's a tough one. GSP probably would out wrestle him.
I agree. Would you rather be punched in the face or step on a Lego barefoot in the middle of the night in the dark on your way to the bathroom?
I deliberately chose to be punched in the face for 20 years, so you know the answer to
that. All right. Who do you have a harder time with, Chuck Norris or Bruce Lee?
Bruce Lee was he was the forward thinker. He was the guy that really kind of, I think Bruce Lee was the real deal. Chuck Norris was also a very good martial artist, but Bruce Lee was the real guy. He was the cross-training guy. He was seeking and putting together, different techniques from different arts and things like that. So you got to go with the forward thinker.
Gotcha. Okay. You have to sing one song, and it can't be a nursery rhyme or the national anthem or anything like that. One song, radio type song, start to finish without messing up one word for $1 million. What song is it going to be?
Farm rap.
Can you elaborate? I'm not familiar.
Well, the windstorm came and it blew real hard, but down the tomatoes, but down the corn. Hey, I'm lucky that I'm alive, and I do know that I will survive. Work my fingers to the bone, and the government is going to yank my loan. It's rough. It's tough.
I love it.
It's a joke. Look up. You can look up on YouTube the pajama slave dancers.
Okay. I was going to say, you got to send me a link to that.
They've got, dude, their songs are hilarious. Just look up YouTube, the pajama slave dancers.
Okay. I love that. In your bathroom at home, does the toilet paper feed over the roll or under?
On the top, man. It's got to come off the top.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. You're going to commit a bank robbery, and you need to take 2 people with you, a gunman and a getaway driver. Who are you taking?
Well, I'm taking a guy that can drift for the driving, right? And probably a DevGru naval special warfare guy as the guy that's operating the machinery, the weaponry.
I would have bet money that you would have said Lee Murray.
Well, Lee Murray did it. He pulled it off. The problem with what they did I mean, have you read the whole, like, into like what they actually pulled off?
I mean, I've read a lot about it. How much of it's true from side to side,
There
I
was
don't
so much
know.
planning and Hollywood makeup and
Mhm.
disguises and fake cop cars and all kinds of stuff. But so they had this genius plan to steal. It was the biggest bank heist in world history, and then they had no plan afterwards. So they were at like the French Riviera, a bunch of ghetto kids from England, go to the French Riviera, and they're buying, Ferraris and Rolexes and shit like that, and driving around the ghetto of London with Ferraris and Lamborghinis and shit, and just
That
not
love
real
life, man.
smart, not real
Right.
smart. Yeah.
Okay. I want to bring up some stories from some guys that I reached out to. Some of these are just a few words, and you may have to kind of decipher for me what they're talking about. Some of the other ones were paragraphs and paragraphs long, and I tried to shorten them down. As I mentioned in the intro, Ben Rothwell let me know and sent me some pictures, which are hilarious. What makes you the greatest wrestling partner in mediocre motel room history?
Yeah. So, yeah,
The
we got
booze.
a little ornery one night, and yeah, we had a wrestling match, and that was in London, I believe. I
Okay.
believe that was a European trip, um, and I had had a few drinks, and yes, we had a battle royale that night. So
Those are great pictures. I'm actually going to get them developed and hang a couple on the wall. All right. I reached out to Drew McFedries, and he said that he used to call you Master Splinter, obviously from the Ninja Turtles. What is it like having a bunch of grown badasses walking around calling you Master Splinter?
well, I mean, it's those guys mean a lot to me, the memories and stuff like that. So um, the Drew is a guy that uh, really had a special place in my heart because he had a pretty tough life
Yeah.
and he's done a pretty damn good job, um, you know, holding
Yeah.
himself to a higher standard. And so I'll always love Drew. Drew was a guy when had I had the experience now with human health that I did back then when I was still experimenting a lot and things like that, I would have been able to solve Drew's digestive system
Hmm.
issues that kind of really were the reason he didn't win a world title, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. That
He
was the
he
only thing.
talked about that extensively the first time I had him on the show. He's kind of done some self healing as well.
Yeah, he has. And he and Robbie, two pound for pound hardest hitters ever in the sport, in my humble opinion.
Hmm.
Devastating
Yeah.
power, devastating.
I've often
And
told Drew that his
and
right
his
hand.
Drew's fight IQ was on a different level, just
Mhm.
on a different level. So
Yeah, love
yeah.
Drew. I reached out to Mark Coleman, and he brought up exhaustion training. That's when the real training starts, when you think you're actually done and can't do anymore. And he wanted me to bring up a time that he was at the gym and you put him in with two or three different guys. The first one was I believe a young kickboxer, and Mark handled him pretty well. And then you put in like a 16-year-old incredible boxer, and Mark managed to get through him. And then you said, one or the other of you said, how about I get in there with you? And Mark said that you and he had one of the greatest sparring rounds that he ever experienced. You were both bloody and beaten when it was over, and it was awesome.
Mark Mark back then was, obviously
Oh,
pretty scary human being. It was, well, there was a Saturday when only one other heavyweight showed up, and that heavyweight got hurt, so I had to spar with Mark. And I sparred with heavyweights, back then. Um, and we were sparring, and he hit me right in the temple with a really hard right hand, and he was extremely strong guy,
mhm.
immense amounts of power, and it right down the meridian of my body made the left side of my body go numb, so I couldn't move my left arm actually,
Mhm.
and so all I could do was throw straight rights, So I had to blast him with straight rights to keep
He
him off me.
mentioned that.
And I rifled him as hard as I could several times. And then the round ended. I think that was like the third round that we did or whatever it was. And I was good. I'm like, I'm good at that point. I don't need to spar with you anymore. We'll wait till Sylvia and Rothwell or whoever
Right.
shows up to take care of that shit from now
Exactly.
on. Yeah, and sparring with, and you can only spar with heavyweights so long before things start to, get broken. So
yeah, absolutely. Another one of my favorite guys, Jeremy Horn, wanted me to bring up your uncanny ability to make any placebo work. And the example he gave me was if you were concerned about your legs cramping, you could get it in your head that this was the example he gave, that a Snickers bar could keep your legs from cramping for 3 hours. If you believed it, it worked. And he wanted me to bring that up. He was always amazed by that.
Jeremy's hilarious. No, it's just a matter of, if guys started complaining about the training being too hard, for instance, I'd go, hey man, you can always go pour concrete for a living. Go do that. Leave here, go pour concrete. I don't care. And they'd go, yeah, I think I'll stick around. Stuff like that. But Jeremy was notorious early on in his career, not later on, but he'd bring a freaking 2-liter of Mountain Dew to practice. And I'm like, dude, you cannot drink Mountain Dew anymore. It's got to stop.
Did it
which
stop?
Of course eventually did. But Jeremy is one of the greatest fighters ever to walk the planet, without a doubt, and an amazing, he's an amazing human being and fighter, and helped me immensely. He did a lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring, a lot of technique work with the guys, and huge guy in terms of building mixed martial arts and, of course, my team.
Absolutely. I've got 2 more of these to bring up, and then the last couple questions, and we'll be done. Are we all right on time?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Spencer Fisher wanted to know why you always had to play country music during wrestling and shit like NXS during sparring.
Well, wrestling was, growing up, the wrestling coaches always played country during practice.
Okay.
So that was just the norm for me.
Okay.
And then sparring, I was trying to help the guys. I'd even play rap. I'd play hard rock, stuff like that for sparring, because I was trying to give these freaking these white boys some rhythm.
Okay, there we go.
Right?
A beat.
I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help Country Boy Can't Survive switch over to a little bit of R&B.
Right.
Give Matt Hughes some rhythm and stuff. So that was really part of why I wanted the guys to have that upbeat rhythmic movement and things like that for the sparring. So,
speaking of Matt Hughes, I've been told that you and he have quite the sarcastic relationship. You're both kind of smartasses to each other. Would you say that's accurate?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that was before I brought this up, because as soon as he sees this, he's going to laugh his ass off that I said this to you.
Okay.
But it's what he told me to say, and so I've got to say it. He wanted me to ask you what it felt like when he walked into the gym after defending his title for the 6th time when you had only defended yours 5 times.
Yeah, that's Matt.
Okay, I'm sorry. He told me.
No, that's fine. And you know what? Here's the thing.
Good.
If we're doing it right, we're making them better than we were.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that's a great compliment. Ultimately,
Mm-hmm.
Would I have loved to have been a 6 or 7 time world, or defending world champ?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, but it didn't happen. And so I guess I did my job coaching and made them better than me, and that's awesome. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And people don't know that Matt and Mark Hughes, the twins, on road trips would just out of the blue attack me at times and gang up on me. One time at the MGM buffet, the day after some fights, we were there was like 30 of us in total eating
Mm-hmm.
breakfast. And all of a sudden my chair got ripped out from underneath me and I landed on the floor, and Mark and Matt were putting the boots to me. They were kicking me. So I had to climb up under the table to get away from them. And then they walked away laughing out of the MGM Grand Buffet. And I crawled out from under the table, and I looked up, and literally all around us was nothing but traumatized families. And the Hughes boys are walking away laughing hysterically.
Sure.
They were going to grab me on top of the Hoover Dam. It was a tour. And they started walking toward me. I was out in the middle of the road on the Hoover Dam. I don't know if you've ever been there before.
No,
it's a long ways down, brother, and I'm afraid of heights. So they were going to grab me and drag me over to the edge and try to scare me. Well, and I looked at both Matt and Mark, and I go, I'm being dead serious now. The first one that gets to me is getting KO'd. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
I'm going to rifle you with a right hand. And they both
that's
looked
like
at each other. They both looked at each other, and they were like, yeah, all right, we'll leave him alone. We'll leave him alone this time.
Yeah. Whew. I'm kind of scared of heights. I couldn't even walk out on that thing, man.
Yeah, no, it's a long ways up. And I've tried getting rid of my fear of heights by skydiving and rappelling off of a 34-story building, and it didn't work. So
no. The last fighter I reached out to, a longtime friend of yours, Randy the Natural Couture, wanted me to bring up a story. I'm going to do my best to remember this. It's all in my phone, and I can't get to it right now. 2000, Japan. You and he are there cornering Dan Henderson and Matt Linland. You're staying at the hotel. The Japanese fans are amazing, and they'll spend a week camping out at the fighter hotel.
Yeah.
The story I want to know about is when you guys walked out, the young Japanese man asked you for a picture, and you agreed, but he had to have a dip of Copenhagen first. What happened after that?
Yeah, so there was a couple times with Japanese, the Pride organization, one of their representatives, I forced him to put a chew of Copenhagen in, and then now and then for pictures, it was mean. It's just mean-hearted to do. I would never do that now, but they turn a pretty color green and they vomit into a garbage can. That's what generally.
Those are the exact emojis Randy sent me. He said by the time the young man got to him, he had to go run in the puke in the trash can. And now, as this is happening, can you tell me what Rampage is doing with 10 or 12 fans lined up?
I'm not quite sure. Was he choking people unconscious? I don't know.
According to Randy, he had 10 or so fans lined up, and he was going up and down the line, slapping them all across the face, and they were loving it.
Well, the thing is in those days in America, we weren't really the professional athletes from baseball, like the pro wrestlers would come see us in the locker room. Pro boxers like Tyson came to our locker room once, stuff like that. So we were recognized by other professional athletes. They loved us, but we weren't accepted by the media, by the athletic commissions, a lot of that sort of stuff way back in the day. And so for us, we were kind of the black sheep of the sports world, and it hurt our feelings. Actually, it kind of pissed you off because we're as good athletes as anybody out there. I mean, we have to work very hard at what we do. So when we got to Japan the first time, and you walk through Narita Airport and you come out of immigration or whatever, and you've got 100 photographers taking pictures of you, from all the magazines and all that sort of stuff. It's just a total different world, right? So the Japanese treated us so well, and we stayed in 5-star hotels and all of that, where in America we're staying at the worst hotel possible,
right,
with a hooker and a hot tub, three rooms down.
Allegedly.
That's the kind of places we had to stay in the early years. But so it was a different experience in Japan.
Gotcha. let's say tomorrow, street fight, dark alley, who wins, you or Jake Paul?
Me or Jake Paul?
Yeah.
Well, now that I'm, in my upper 50s, he's probably going to get the best of me. He's a good wrestler and stuff.
No.
But here's the thing. I would say this, that in my prime, not a long fight. Not a long fight. No.
No, absolutely
He's tough
not.
though. He's not a highly polished boxer or any of those things. But he's a good athlete and he's a tough guy. And
Is he growing on you? He's growing on me.
it's not that they never needed to grow on me. It's one thing that I recognized is those guys, with whatever athletic abilities they had, which I think is considerable. I think they're both very good athletes. I think that they did such a good job at marketing themselves and have turned that into so much money that there's no way I can criticize them. I really can't. I can't criticize guys that have pulled that off. Because here's the thing. At what point, I came that close to fighting Roy Jones Jr. when we were toward the end of our careers. He got knocked out in Australia and that fell through. And then Winky Wright, who was a 5-time world champ, Winky Wright and I met in Detroit, our representatives and us, and we were putting together actually a reality show, and we were going to do a fight as well. And that kind of fell through the teams not agreeing on terms. But here's what I'm saying is, like, we were already working on that stuff long before, the Conor McGregor and Mayweather stuff and all of that. And so it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. But anyway, Jake Paul is having those kind of names come to him. Right. That's a lot of clout. That's an ability. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What is something that you really enjoy that most people wouldn't know about?
To be honest with you, I mean, I enjoy fishing. I enjoy wildlife. I enjoy bringing this farm back to life in the middle of a chemical agriculture world. All the wildlife comes here now. All the thousands of birds nest here. The deer herds come here. It's because they recognize that this is the place to be. This is the safe place, the nutrient rich, vitality rich soil and everything else. So this is where everything is. So we can look out any given day and see wildlife all over the place, and that's pretty cool.
It's beautiful. For anybody who's watching this, Pat, who right now is going through hard times, maybe is at their own personal rock bottom, doesn't know what to do, is maybe thinking about throwing in the towel, what message would you share with them about not giving up?
It is this. It is, because of all the problems I had in my life and solving them, my health issues, becoming a world champ, all these things, it no matter what, it took a team, it took learning, but ultimately with alcohol or addiction, that it's never, you yourself will never solve it. You have to do the heavy lifting, yes. But I can tell you this, that if you don't hand all the big stuff over to your higher power, whatever that is to you, and allow the bigger stuff that you can't control to go away, and just focus on the little things. And look, man, some days that is making your bed, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, getting your clothes on. And if that's all you accomplish that day, and you sit down in a chair the whole day and just veg and just can't believe, the situation that you've gotten yourself into through addiction, that's a big accomplishment, right? That's a huge accomplishment. So never give up on yourself, and understand that you do have the ability to hand it over to your higher power, and just let them take it over. If the world goes nuke tomorrow and everything gets nuked, God's got to handle that. I have no control over that shit. I don't have control over the questions that you would have asked me today. And if one of them would have been deemed like, whatever, offensive or anything like that, I can't control you. I can't control other people's free will. I can't control things that are going to happen. I can only control what I do with the inside and how I deal with it. That's all I can do. And so super important for people to understand that.
I love that, Pat. What is the best way for fans to keep up with you and everything you have going on?
Well, I'm working on getting my old Twitter, Pat MILETICH, and my old Instagram back, which is Pat or PJ MILETICH. I'm trying to think. But right now, people can follow me on Instagram at Soil Savior with the number 1 at the end of it, Soil Savior 1, and then just PJ MILETICH on Facebook and stuff. And then if they want to go to my websites and learn about soil to human health, they can go to soilsaviors.org or cellsaviors.org and learn what superhumans do.
Awesome.
Because that's what you got to put in your body to become a superhuman.
Yes, sir. I don't have any more questions. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up or maybe shout out anyone?
No, hey man, thank you and congrats to you again
Pat.
congrats to you again for 20 years of sobriety, brother.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I will upload this as soon as we get off here. It'll take about a half hour to get on YouTube. Would you like me to send you the first copy to check out?
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, I will do that. If you see anything you don't like, let me know and I will take it down.
Hey, no stress.
Pat, thank you so much. You are a legend. I've been trying to get this interview for close to a year. Ask any of the MILETICH guys that I've interviewed. They'll tell you this is a big deal to me. This is a big deal to the viewers. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your night, man.
All right, brother. Thank you, Mike.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Wow, Pat MILETICH, that was awesome, you guys. Go check out the soil stuff. I'm going to look into it. If I can lose a few pounds, it probably wouldn't hurt. If you want to go over to justblazeclothing.com, pick you up a shirt. They're awesome. I appreciate it. They help the show go, and hopefully they'll get me to the next event. If you're a fighter and you need any gear, hit up Nick Sampson over at HKA. He's an awesome guy. He's got everything you could possibly need. I appreciate y'all for staying. I know this was a long one. I look forward to talking to you again soon. I believe tomorrow is Melvin Gillard Part 2. Have a great night, everyone.